Good evening. My name's Paul Fogarty. I write about food and drink under the name The Aperitif Guy. I maintain a regular blog and a YouTube channel, and I also do some work sometimes presenting, doing guided tastings, and so on. I've been running a private dining club since about 1992, I think. So a good long time there to be doing that. So I've plenty of experience of the pleasures of the table, as I keep saying. I thought we'd have a chat about aperitifs. There's two sides to an aperitif, really. There's the drink itself, which is intended to prepare you for what's coming next, for a nice dinner. And so there are certain drinks that are more common than others at that sort of time. But the other thing about aperitif culture is it's not just on the drink. There's a whole culture, a whole ritual, a whole thing going on. And you think of countries like France, Spain, Italy. These are the countries where aperitif culture is most embedded. Um, and what happens is people go to work, they do whatever they do, they have a hard time at work like we all do. Come the end of the working day, it stops. They're not, many of them are not a culture of working long hours late into the night. That's something peculiarly Anglo-Saxon, I think. They stop. They sit down with their friends somewhere in bars, restaurants, in each other's homes, and that's when they have their aperitif drink, a few nibbles, some conversation. So aperitif culture is much more about the conversation, really, the socializing, than it is about the drink itself. So let's make this a conversation. I'm going to be very boring to you if I'm just sitting lecturing you for the next hour. So please join in with comments, questions, whatever, whilst I'm rambling on, and we'll make it a conversation. It's got to be two ways, hasn't it? Otherwise, it's very, very, very dull. So I'm going to start with one of the simplest but best known aperitif drinks, and that's sherry. This has just come from one of the supermarkets. And sherry has a bad reputation sometimes in Britain. I think there are plenty of us with memories of Enver Cream at Christmas that was still open from the previous Christmas before and that sort of thing. Actually, true sherry is really good wine. So it's something that's fine and needs to be savoured and taken slowly. I'm going to pour this one. Do you know this is one of my favourite sounds? Oh, so here's the first comment. Nice and sociably, deliciously Yorkshire is looking forward to catching up with me soon. Oh, I'm so looking forward to that. I have to say, once we get together, Christina runs Source Climate Change Coffee, and she's my next door neighbour. We have a great laugh. So during the lockdown, we've been chatting over the fire escape quite a lot. Which leads me quite nicely back to the sherry, because Christina is from Spain. Well, strictly speaking, she's Welsh. She was born in Wales, and I like to remind her of that. But she grew up in Spain with Spanish family and Spanish parents, and Spanish is her first language. And we get on really well. It's so nice to just sit out there in the sun with a glass of sherry or whatever else. This kind of sherry is called a palo cortado. All sherry, apart from the very sweet sherries, are made from white grapes. No matter what the colour it is when it finishes up, it is a white wine. So wine sherries such as Fino and Manzanilla are fermented right to dryness, and then they're left to mature, still mature, but they're protected from oxidizing by a particular yeast that grows on the surface and stops it oxidizing. Darker sherries start to oxidize, and that's what gives them that color. Um, and it gives them a very nutty aroma, a very rounded, nutty aroma. Thank you very much, Guznar Gin. I'm enjoying you joining me, and I'm looking forward to trying your Chapter 3 edition when it comes out this year, which will mix with mix into a white Negroni. I think that's going to be fabulous. So this sherry, it smells slightly nutty. It's fabulous with green olives and salted almonds and things like that. Um, and you can imagine yourself with this sort of thing, sitting overlooking the sea with the sun shining down on you. The end of the day in Spain, and the end of the day in Spain can be as late as 9 o'clock at night, can't it? Um, Now this sherry is very dry, and you can taste a little bit of yeast on there. It's quite nice. It's like it's hard to describe, a little bit like toasted bread, um, and it's also ever so slightly salty as well. So that's going to go very well with my collection of aperitif foods over here. um, Aperitif culture, you've got to keep nibbling because what you don't want to be doing is going from your aperitif drink and chat to the dinner table with your head already squiffy and your stomach not really in the mood anymore. So you'll always get nibbly foods. So this is what I've been able to grab for myself this evening. Um, it's just what I had in the fridge and the cupboards. So I've got some pistachios; they'll be delicious. Pistachios, you have to work out them so that they're practically calorie free, because you'll work off the calories in the nut by opening the shells. Um, Over here, just some jars that were open in the fridge. So I've got some gherkins, I've got some caper berries, and I've got some Greek olives. And on this side, I'm treating myself some little bits of truffled black truffle pecorino cheese. Um, that came from the Courtyard Dairy at Settle, which is a fantastic dairy. They're incredibly supportive of independent English cheesemakers, particularly from the north. They kind of, because they're at Settle, the territory straddles North Yorkshire, Cumbria, Lancashire, and they do fantastic work promoting the independent cheesemakers around the country. So I treated myself to that from them. I say I treated myself. I spent £56 on all kinds of things, uh, but that was one of the principal pleasures that attracted me. Um, so it's all very simple. There's nothing kind of getting in the way of the conversation. That's the point of it. Oh, hello, Miss McCarran Humphrey. Um, Kath is an old friend from university, so that's adding to the sociability of this. Kath has drunk God knows how much sherry with me over the years, um, and several other things. Um, what's nice, Kath is a member of my dining society, so she's also come and joined us at table on a regular basis, and we're very much missing that social network that we had. Um, we were due to have a dinner party last week, which we've put off to September, more in hope than confidence, perhaps. But we're looking forward to still having people around. And actually, I've lived in France and I've visited Italy and Spain and several other countries over the years. But it's really here that I've come to appreciate the aperitif properly with this dining club. Um, because when you're cooking dinner for so many people, you get stressed, and to have a moment before dinner where you just say, "Sod it, the dinner can wait now." Open a bottle of um, something nice, chat with your friends, have some nibbles, and it gives me as a cook 30 minutes to wind down slightly before I disappear back um, into the kitchen, start heating things up again. But by then, everybody's socializing and chatting, and I don't need to worry about them anymore. Um, I would heartily agree with Caroline Oates here. Caroline Oates, I'm giving her the full title. She's actually my baby sister. Um, but she's wanting to hear more. She said we could all do with taking time to stop and chat with friends and family. That's such a big thing. I think it contributes to lower levels of mental ill health in those countries. Um, I really do. I think that in our country, we're at the end of Mental Health Awareness Week this week. I think we rush at things far too much. I think we plough through our working day. We feel guilty at leaving at the right time. We rush home. We throw some food down our bellies and then dash out again to the pub, um, or wherever. We're constantly moving, um, and I think in cultures like France, they don't do that. When when the working day is over, it's over, and that aperitif time is gives you a chance to stop. It kind of punctuates the day. It says that's over. Now let's look forward to socializing, being at home with our family, being out with friends, whichever we're doing. Um, I used to say I used to live in France. Now I was 20. I was too young to really appreciate much. But one of the things that I noticed, because I was a student at that point, and I was well into finish your lectures, throw a tin of beans into your face, run out again, and party hard with your friends. And it struck me very forcefully that even young people in France don't do that. They, the socializing, the free socializing that you would do, with your friends and your family, where you turn up on the doorstep unannounced and say, "Hi, do you fancy a drink?" I suppose these days you'd give each other a ring, or send each other a text or a WhatsApp message. But that free socializing that you can do with close friends and family without um, without needing an appointment, that's done in France around between kind of 5.5, 7ish. Um, as somebody I was chatting to on Facebook a few days ago, one of my old school friends, and he's now married to a French lady, and he says, and where she comes from, all doors are open between 5 and 7, and people sit with a bottle and hope that you'll come round for a conversation. I think it's such a much nicer approach to life. Jane, you bang on. We are far too busy. Do you know what? I think one of the few good things that is coming out of COVID, and we're in a mess if we can't find anything good in our situation. That's a recipe for terrible disasters, isn't it? We've got to find good things. We've got to make positives out of our current situation. And I think one of the few things that we can be positive about is it's forced us to slow down. Um, and then we start to notice the things that are important. We value our friendships more. We notice who it is that's making the effort to help us. We value our families more. God, I'm desperate to smell the back of my grandson's head. It sounds daft, but it's the smell of people that I'm missing. I never thought I'd hear myself saying that. Oh, Caroline might laugh at me for that one. But yeah, so slowing down, chatting, having a conversation like this. Um, Claire is joining with gin and tonic and olives while she makes meatballs. Fabulous, Claire. That sounds like an absolutely brilliant idea. I do have a gin here that I'm going to talk about in a minute. Um, oh, deliciously Yorkshire. You've just sent, posted a question and a half there. Um, the most versatile spirit or liqueur, and what's your personal favourite? I think probably gin is the most versatile. Um, gin, it's to do with the history of cocktail making, perhaps more than anything else. And I want to talk about cocktails tomorrow, or when we do another live chat tomorrow night. Um, but gin has everything that a good aperitif drink should have. It's clean tasting, so it's not going to get in the way of what comes next. Um, it's packs a punch in terms of its alcoholic strength, which again helps to stimulate the appetite. Um, and then things, bitter, astringent flavors irritate your tongue slightly, and therefore your body reacts by producing plenty saliva, and so you taste what's coming next a lot better. Um, and that's kind of the origin of these drinks being consumed before dinner. Is that they're about preparing you for what comes next. I think that let's talk a little bit about that. You know, we've done the kind of socializing, which I'll probably roam back to several times during this conversation. Um, but aperitif drinks kind of fall into that category. Like the sherry, sherry is fortified. It's fortified with alcohol to preserve it, but that extra alcohol in there, over and above table wine, helps to promote the appetite. It, I don't know whether you saw. I can't remember which program it was on. One of the programs on the BBC last week did an experiment with two rugby clubs, and they were fed pizzas. And one rugby club was provided with unlimited quantity of alcohol-free beer, and the other one was provided with unlimited quantity of alcoholic beer. And they didn't know what they were getting. And they weighed up how much food had been consumed, and I think it was about 33% extra had been consumed on the table that was drinking alcohol. So higher alcohol does make a difference. And then you've got that element of bitterness and astringency that comes in. And here's another one. Vermouth. Vermouth is wine, usually white wine, even when it's a red vermouth. Wine flavored with herbs, usually, sometimes spices, and then fortified. Sometimes it's sweetened as well to make the spices more tolerable, because they can be quite bitter. Wormwood is the principal flavouring in most vermouths, and that kind of gets your appetite going. They were originally developed as medicinal drinks, but then as modern medicine has taken over and become much more reliable, we're left with them as very pleasant pre-dinner drinks. So vermouth is a good one. Vermouth again gets used in all sorts of cocktails and everything. And then there are sweet drinks. That's another thing, is because we're using high alcohol, port, sweet sherry, Madeira is often served as an aperitif drink. Which brings me on to the gin and tonic, the classic aperitif above all others, isn't it? Um, and it's such a pleasure to watch new distilleries coming up and trying new things. I have certain issues with certain styles of gin that are coming up, um, and I have my own favourites and my own preferences and tastes. But it's great to see a sector of our economy and our industries really pushing the boat out, really experimenting, trying new things. Popularity will change and things will move on, and the really good quality gins will survive it, and people will find new tastes that they've never thought of before. Talking of new tastes, this is the gin that I've got next to me. Our friends at the Lakes Distillery produced this. Have recently produced this pink grapefruit gin. The pink grapefruit gin is gorgeous, I have to say. What I like. Oh, that's a lovely point, Claire. Thank you. Claire used to prescribe a tot of sherry to be had before dinner for elderly patients. That's a lovely thought. That's looking after your elderly properly, isn't it? And that sounds like a great idea. So with the lakes, I like my gins dry. I'm not a big fan of gins where the flavour has been added in the form of a sweetened syrup. Some of them are really nice. Some of them do nothing for me. But I love dry gins, really dry gins. And the great thing about the Lakes Distillery revised its recipe for its classic dry gin about 18 months ago. And that's a nice gin in itself. It's got a really long finish. The flavour is all about the juniper. There's juniper in there. There's a little bit of sweet orange. There's some black pepper. And if there are other botanicals in there, the lakes are not telling us about it, and you can't really discover them on the nose. It's so much about those three flavours, but principally that juniper, which makes, like so many others, that it makes it a great, lovely, fresh drink. And that's what I want in a gin. It also makes that incredibly flexible for mixing with other flavors in cocktails, and other gins that are like that. Mason's is a great one for mixing in cocktails because it's got that clean flavor to it. I'm interested to try the Murphy's London Dry because I suspect that one is as well. What I've been hearing about it today, so I'm looking forward to that. Anyway, pink grapefruit. The pink grapefruit is infused in the gin without it being sweetened. So when I open this, the first thing that hits me is the smell of grapefruit. It's absolutely wonderful. I'm gonna pour myself a gin and tonic. Do excuse me a moment. I'm sure if anybody else is doing one, now's the time to top yourself up. Couple of ice cubes. It's summer. I'm putting 3 in there. And some, shall I hold that you can see? And some gin. That looks like a lot, but there's a lot of ice in there. Please, Having said that, when you bought a really good quality gin, and the Lakes Distillery, oops, let's show you the label again. Lakes Distillery, it's 30 odd pound a bottle, £33, I think it is. I think I can convince you, Gav. Definitely. It's £33 a bottle, so it's not a cheap gin, is it? So you don't want to drown it in tonic water. But I think the thing with premium spirits and premium wines and things like that is they have to work at justifying that price. If they're going to stay in business, charging £10 more than you'd pay in the supermarket for another gin, they have to do something that's worth that £10. And I think the thing with the Lakes Distillery gin, it's very smooth, and that means you don't need a lot of tonic water in it as well. I'm reading you, Jane. Yes, I have tried the Art Gin Roman Fruits. Fruity but dry. It's the same thing, isn't it? It stays dry. The Roman Fruits is lovely. The Roman Fruits gin is made. They basically make a fruit tea. A giant tea bag, if you like, of red fruits. There's raspberries, there's currants, there's all kinds of berries that were common in York at the time of the Romans, and they steep it overnight in the water that they're going to dilute the gin with. I'm not sure exactly what process the Lakes uses for getting the juniper flavour in. I know they talk about infusing, whether they infuse it in the gin, in the water, or whether they distill it through with the gin. Um, Perhaps Darvel is going to come on and comment at some point and tell me. I would love him to. If you're out there, Darvel Gandhi, the head distiller at the Lakes, then I'm fascinated. Please tell me exactly what process you used to get the pink grapefruit flavour in this. It is delicious. So anyway, tonic water. You can I think people should experiment with mixers for gin, for vodka, for whatever they mix. Play with your mixers and try all sorts of other things. We've kind of got to a stage in the history of gin that people assume that if it's a good gin, it needs Fever Tree, and I'm about to fall into that by pouring Fever Tree into this. But there are plenty mixers out there. There are plenty tonic waters out there, all kinds of different flavour profiles. Even like Schweppes have kind of come on the bandwagon and they're making a much more quinine forward tonic water these days, which is great. It's really bitter. It's fabulous. Um, but anyway, for this, I am going to use a Fever Tree Mediterranean tonic. I mix my gin and tonic usually about 50-50. Caroline, yes, I would. Ginger ale. Ginger ale is a classic combination with gin. Has been for years. It's kind of fallen out of favour, but back in the 50s, gin and ginger was a really popular drink. I'm just going to check I've got the mix right here. Needs a touch more tonic. So it's just over 50-50. I know the Fever Tree advertising slogan once was, if 3/4 of your drink is tonic water, you need to spend money on the tonic water or something like that. My take on that is, if 3/4 of your gin is tonic water, you've drowned your gin. So that's delicious. Lace Distillery recommends you don't garnish this, and I'm with them on that one. But you get this wonderful. I said a bit ago that Christina Tallons and I often chat to each other across the fire escapes. A few weeks ago, she had a drink of the pink grapefruit gin and tonic, and from a properly socially distant distance away, I could still smell the grapefruit. So that's how fresh it is. That is a fantastic summer evening drink. So that's, if you like, this is my recommendation for the festival. Get yourself a bottle of Lakes Distillery pink grapefruit gin. They're not paying me. They don't send me anything. Actually, that's not true. They did send me a sample of that to try, and I genuinely fell in love with it. Which brings me on, Caroline. There's some lovely things that you can mix. There's all kinds of tonic waters. Yes, Jane's just commented, if you need 75% tonic water, you've bought the wrong gin. Yes, I'd agree with that, because you're not going to taste it. To come back to Caroline with mixers for gin and on any other drink, there's several things you can mix gin with that it goes really, really well with. It goes really well with fruit juices. So orange juice, grapefruit juice. You mix gin with grapefruit juice, it's called a greyhound. For those of us who like the salt rim on a glass when we have a margarita, if you salt the rim of the glass before you make a greyhound, you call it a salty dog. So try that. Try ginger ale. Try ginger beer. Try elderflower cordial and soda water. Just ring the changes. And actually, oh, here's one for Caroline. You'll love this. And I think several of the other ladies watching love this one. Try mixing it with gin, lemon juice, a touch of sugar, and top up with champagne. Um, that's called a French 75, and it is a gloriously boozy cocktail. You can't have too many of them because the acid gets to you. But it is a fabulous cocktail. And if you'll permit me a little rant, a French 75 isn't made with Prosecco, and it's not made with premixed cordial either. It's French, a French 75. So you need French wine in there. If you're going to have a cocktail that boozy, have champagne. You'll feel so much better for it afterwards. The gin makes the champagne, gives its bitterness and its freshness in there. The lemon juice adds the freshness, but you do need the sugar to take the edge off. So you can either put sugar and muddle a sugar cube with your lemon juice before you add the gin, or you can cheat and put a teaspoon of sugar syrup in there. But if you mix your gin, sugar, and lemon juice, fresh lemon juice out of a real lemon, not a plastic one, mix those together first. Put them in the bottom of a champagne flute and top up with champagne, and then you'll feel fabulously decadent. A French 75, before it was a drink, was a piece of heavy artillery that was famous for its recoil when you shot, and that's why the drink is called a French 75, because it has a bit of a kick with it. So those people out there who follow my blog, if you go right back to the very first blog entry that I ever wrote about what is an aperitif, there's a black and white photograph at the head of that blog entry, and the cocktail on there is a French 75. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to have as a photograph, so my partner and I sat down and thought, well, what cocktail do we fancy drinking tonight? Oh, let's have a French 75. So that's what we photographed. It's beautiful, and it has a wonderful place in cinema history too. Does the French 75? For those people who are into classic cinema, if you watch Casablanca, and one of the minor characters, whose name I've forgotten, Kath, help me out. Is it Marianne? It's not Marianne. Rick's ex-girlfriend. Can't remember her name now. Kath will respond. It'll come up. She's despised by everybody because she is turned collaborator. Now, the thing to remember about wartime is that it's hardship everywhere, and you shouldn't judge people for their choices that are made under extreme hardship. But this young woman, having been rejected by Rick because Elsa's turned up, is now got herself a German boyfriend in occupied French Morocco. And she goes out on the lash with him one night, and it's terribly hedonistic. They just want one thing after another. And she turns to him at one point and says, "Oh, let's have a French 75. I remember those from before the war." And it's the epitome of extravagance and booziness. And it's both Yvonne. Thank you, Kath. Her name was Yvonne. And it's about the extravagance of it all, the booziness. But to some extent, it's about illustrating how far she's fallen. She's now virtually alcoholic in the arms of a German. So be careful, Caroline, if you're going to have that one as your aperitif. You don't want to be legless in the arms of somebody else's husband. But so that's the French 75. Oh, I'm in the mood for one now. Champagne is an obvious aperitif drink, isn't it? It's not just about it being cold and dry and fizzy. There is something about the mythology of champagne that creates a social atmosphere. It's purely psychological. Um, but we live in a world where there are cultural connections all around us. Taste and an emotional experience of food and drink and socializing around a table isn't just about what happens in your mouth. Um, we know that taste is a combination of the experience on your tongue and the experience in your nose. But actually, the neurology of taste works it's a very complicated thing. That the nerves sending the signals about how sweet, dry, how sharp or sour, how bitter a drink is, they arrive in the brain incredibly close, virtually the same place to the olfactory sense and to the sense of touch, so the texture in your mouth, but also that's very close to the emotional centers as well. So your emotional experience, your sense of smell, your sense of taste, the mouth feel of any food, they're all happening together and they'll all affect each other. So if we open a bottle of champagne with that lovely sound it's called a sigh, you don't shoot it across the table, you just open it with a pop. Then you watch it fizz and you let the bubble settle. You've now got a sense of expectation. And then you've got that sense of champagne is a luxury drink. So I'm now in the realms of luxury. This is before I've tasted anything. I'm already prepared for an exciting, wonderful evening. And I haven't tasted anything yet. So then I taste the drink and I chat with my friends and sorry, I'm waving my arms around all over everywhere. I've had a sip of sherry and a sip of gin. I'm still sober. But this is what happens when we get together. Um, so that's what these drinks are about. This sense of create something sociable, exciting, make people feel that what's coming next in terms of their dinner is to build a sense of expectation and to build bonds. And I think that's something. Yeah, there's something in my DNA that is the bonds around the table. Um, my grandmother was a great baker. I've posted in the food tent today a link to a blog reminiscing about my grandmother's cookery. Um, my grandmother was a great baker, and she loved us by giving us food. Um, she it's only as an adult, she used to regularly say, "Oh, I had pretty fair milk in. I made a pudding for you." It's only as an adult that I've realised she deliberately ordered too much milk so that she could make a pudding for us. Um, so food is very intimately bound up with love in my family culture. My mum got her gift for cookery from my grandma, and my mum produces lovely food, and I, I think she's not a particularly conservative cook. My mum, she could have finished up, working class St Helens lass, miner's daughter. Um, she had all the makings of northern conservatism with a small c. God knows if anybody suggested she was politically conservative, she'd have your guts for. she's known in the family as Red Licia. Um, but anyway, um, I digress. So my mum, when she was feeding us as children, she used to ring the changes. We weren't a family where it was like one thing on a Monday, same thing every Tuesday, same thing every Thursday. And she tried out new flavors and experimented with all sorts of things. I remember about 1976, probably, I would have said, because I was still in infant school. She sent off to Yorkshire Television which is a big deal for a Lancastrian, sent off to Yorkshire Television for the recipe cards from Farmhouse Kitchen. Now, if you don't remember Farmhouse Kitchen, ask your granny. Um, but the only recipe that ever got used out of that set of cards was the one for chicken curry. So 1976, my mum was making curry for us. She was one of the first people I knew making pizzas and bolognese. And when I chat to people my age and they start reminiscing about foods, they start saying, "Oh yes, and we all started eating pizzas at this time." And I'm thinking, no, we started eating pizzas about 5 years before that. So food is hardwired into my DNA, and so I couldn't conceive of having friendships where I didn't cook for people. It's the most natural thing in the world for me. Fortunately, I've surrounded myself with friends who want to eat. So perfect symbiosis. It's great, and I've been able to develop because my friends enjoy eating and I enjoy cooking, and the love between us is expressed in those terms. Um, they've indulged and encouraged me so much to explore all sorts of things. Um, and so I've come to appreciate aperitif drinking and aperitif culture very much through my relationships with them. I'm going to talk about one more aperitif drink, which I've brought here, and this is something that's very common in France. I suspect it's common in a lot of countries, but I've only ever encountered it in France. Um, Andy Archer, if you're watching this, you might have come across this drink because it's from the southwest of France where your wife comes from. Um, and that's the practice of local people in rural parts of France making their own aperitifs. Um, for that reason, of well, we've got some wine in. It's a bit rough. Let's do something to it, and we'll put it out there when people come round unannounced. We've always got a bottle of this and that. And if you are making things out of your surplus, you'll always have a bottle somewhere stashed away that if someone shows up, you can open the bottle and you're not having to go to the supermarket for things. So this comes in an old whiskey bottle. It's homemade, and actually there's a slight sediment on the bottom of that, so I'm gonna have to pour it carefully. And it's rosé wine flavored with orange peel. Um, in some senses, it's a vermouth without wormwood. Um, it's a bitter orange drink. Now, we don't get an awful lot of rosé wine in the north of England. We don't grow a great deal of sugar anymore in the north of England. But we do have an importer of great spices in the north, in Steenbergs, that are based in not far from Northallerton. And Steenbergs, among their products, is dried Seville orange peel, so bitter oranges, peel taken off, marmalade oranges, the peel taken off, dried and chopped up, and so this is rosé wine out the supermarket, a dry one. If you were watching the wine tasting earlier on, you'll have noticed my comment that I don't like sweet rosés and the California rosés. So it wasn't particularly cheap. It's a French rosé, so which is a bit drier. So rosé, about half a pound of sugar, a bottle of rosé, about 6 ounces of sugar, which is 150 grams ish. A good slug of vodka. What would I say? About just short of 100 mils of vodka. And if you're using the Steenberg spices, a jar of that. It's about, I don't know, 30 grams. Shove it in a bowl, give it a good stir, cover it over, and leave it for 3 days. Um, and then strain it off. I put it through a jelly bag, but it still does cast a sediment. Again, lovely smell of oranges in there. And I'm going to pour that neat over ice, just like that. Again, it has those same qualities that we look for in an aperitif drink. It's higher in alcohol. It's astringent. It's bitter. It stimulates the appetite in those ways. So let's have a taste of that one. Oh, it's like alcoholic marmalade. It's fabulous. And that, obviously, as the ice melts, that'll become a bit more dilute. That would be great if I was doing seafood canapes and aperitif. That would be lovely. It's very, very refreshing. Again, it's one for sitting out on the balcony with. So 3 different drinks there, and some reminiscences about France and about my home life and my childhood and everything. I think that's what this sort of thing is about. What have I enjoyed today? I've been looking through the tents have been fascinating. I've been looking through the different products that are on show. It's phenomenal the effort that people are putting into just getting together, and that's so important with the hospitality industry on ice for now. It's really important, isn't it, that we are able to gather together on here and share our products, share our stories, share the expertise of the chefs that we've been watching. They've been fantastic. I've in the last week or so, in preparation for this, I've recorded some conversations with food and drink producers in the area. Ones I already had connections with. I know the one from Christina Talons went on this morning, but there are some others. There's a conversation with Masons, conversation with Junesford Vineyard, and a conversation with the Waterside Bistro at Shipley. They're going to go on over the next 24 hours. They'll be posted up to the Facebook pages for the festivals. I'd really encourage you to check those out because you get to hear firsthand people's enthusiasm for what they're doing, the deep passion for what they're doing, and we mustn't lose that from this industry during this lockdown. Which brings me really to hospitality action and why that is so important. I spoke particularly to Nicola and Paul at the Waterside. I've said to them, I want to know about your experience of the hardship of this lockdown. Now, for them, it's not been as hard as it might have been for other people in the sense that they had a friend who was able to help them find other work. Now, I'm not so stupid as to think that work is bringing in as much money as the restaurant was bringing. Mind you, restaurants don't bring in a great deal, do they? But that's better than some people have managed. One of the things that came across really, really strongly with them is they said they needed to look after their staff. They didn't want to lay off their staff. So the staff, they've been able to furlough the staff so they can look after them and bring them back. It's a very worrying time for people at the moment because we don't know how long the furlough scheme is going to last. We don't know whether it'll be reduced. Well, we know it'll be reduced a little bit. We don't know how people are going to manage and how long it's going to go on for. So, organisation, like Hospitality Action that provides practical support, financial support, but also emotional support. You think about the stress that those people are under. It's really, really important that we do participate in helping them. Hospitality, food, drink are incredibly important sector for the British economy, but also for the culture. Think back to where we started in this conversation about coming together, sharing experiences. You know, every important event in your life has some connection with hospitality, with food, with drink. It is so important to our culture and therefore so important to our mental health that we are able to talk to people, we're able to socialize, we're able to enjoy each other's company around a table, be that a pub table or a dining table. Doesn't matter, you know, whether you're eating at a two-star restaurant or enjoying a pizza in the pub. It doesn't matter. You're enjoying each other's company and the food, the drink, the people working behind the bar, the person who's cleaned that table for you. They're contributing um, to your experience. I believe we've raised so far around about £300 for hospitality action. To be honest, at the risk of sounding like what's his name from Live Aid, from like Bob Geldof, it's not enough. If you've not given anything yet, please, if you can afford something, follow the link to the Just Giving page and make a donation, however small you can afford. Make a donation to Hospitality Action because it's keeping people together at a really difficult time. So I think, you know, that's where we're up to. Another 5 minutes now. I think I'm probably wound up. But stick around. There's some great music coming up. We've got a DJ set coming up at 8, and then straight into a slightly more acoustic one for later on in the evening.
Thanks, Paul.
Pardon?
How are you, mate?
I'm fine, thank you. Is that Sean?
Yes, it is.
Fantastic. So we're just winding up now. We've had a great little aperitif together. There you are. So we've had a chat and a reminisce. We've drunk some Palo Cortado sherry. We've had a pink gin and tonic and a homemade drink that has no name. But I will put the recipe for this on the wine, beer, and cider tent tomorrow. So if people want to make it at home, they'll have that recipe there. Can't hear you, Sean. Can't hear you.
Thanks, mate. Can you hear us now?
That's it, yeah. I can hear you now.
Thanks very much for doing it, really, Paul. You've done an amazing job. And we've got a couple more videos coming through tomorrow. We've got 3 pre-recorded videos with a couple of interviews from you tomorrow.
Yeah.
We've got a restaurant involved up there. We've got a wine vineyard. And I can't remember the other one now. Coffee was this morning. What's the other one off the top of my head?
Mason's Gin.
Mason's Gin. So we've got a couple of lovely ones of them. And then you're finishing off tomorrow night again?
I am. We're doing some bank holiday cocktails tomorrow night.
Sounds really exciting.
I had a fabulous time earlier on watching Simon do his cocktails. And Simon's cocktails are kind of very modern. He puts a twist on anything he does. You can see kind of within him his enthusiasm for trying out new things and all the rest of it. My style of cocktail making is almost the opposite extreme. I get really excited about discovering the earliest version of a cocktail. So I'm into classics. You know, if it was created any time after about 1930, it's far too modern for me.
Yeah. It sounds good. But that's lovely. Thanks very much for having us today and joining in with us all on all the stages. It's been a pleasure to have you all involved. And if any way possible you can help to know anything you can to help support Hospitality Action, that is absolutely amazing. And I'd like to finish with a little quick video around Hospitality Action and the work they do.
Ollie Hoyle, Catering Manager.
Peter Molar, doorman.
Ricardo Oliva, Concierge.
Ulrich Edwards, Concierge Assistant.
We've got you.
Linda Anderson, cafe owner.
Ioana Georgiou, Junior sous chef.
Nuno Pinto, Bartender.
Mark Black, Head Porter.
Andrea Demir, Receptionist.
We've got you.
Aaron Dixon, Apprentice Chef.
Federica Pinna, Pastry Chef.
Sabino Mazzone, Pastry Chef.
Himari Bochkay, Barista Supervisor.
We've got you. Shom Maharjan, Sushi Head Chef.
Mitchell Collier, Duty Manager.
Anna Grabczewska, Public Area Cleaner.
Whatever you do in hospitality, isn't it good to know that someone's got your back in case anything goes wrong?